Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Lebanon's health ministry says at least 182 people have been killed and 700 more wounded in Israeli strikes today. Israel says strikes against Hezbollah are deepening as citizens in southern Lebanon have received phone messages warning them to leave places used by the Iran-backed group. A Lebanese minister calls the messages psychological war.
We began striking terrorist targets throughout Lebanon.
While Israel's defense minister says strikes will continue until we achieve our goals to return the residents of the north safely to their homes. Fears of an all-out regional conflict in the Middle East have grown in the past week. Cross-border attacks have ratcheted up after a series of exploding device attacks on Hezbollah members, which were widely blamed on Israel. Sri Lanka's new president, Anura Kumara Dissanayake, has been sworn into office, promising clean politics as the country recovers from its worst economic crisis. The left-leaning Dissanayake has cast himself as a disruptor of the status quo, and analysts see his victory as a rejection of corruption and cronyism that has long plagued the country. The election was the first since 2022, when discontent over the economy fueled mass protests and chased the former president, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, from power. The 55-year-old, who is familiarly known as AKD, told Sri Lankans that democracy doesn't end with voting in a leader. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to present a plan for victory in the country's war with Russia to President Joe Biden during this week's visit to the United States. Mr. Zelensky also intends to present the plan to Congress and the two candidates in the US presidential election, Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump. He is expected to ramp up efforts to persuade the US and its allies to allow Ukraine to fire the missiles they supplied deep into Russian territory for the first time in the war. Zelensky's visit to the US coincides with efforts from the White House to prepare a new $375 million military aid package for Ukraine. A transcript from a key meeting at the firm behind the ill-fated Titan submersible has revealed that the CEO said in 2018, "No one is dying under my watch." It captures a heated exchange between OceanGate's chief, Stockton Rush, and his former director of marine operations, David Lockridge, plus 3 other staff. The document was released by the US Coast Guard as part of its inquiry into the June 2023 disaster, when the sub imploded while journeying to the Titanic shipwreck. All 5 passengers were killed, including Rush. Sudan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hussein Awad Ali, has called for reform of the United Nations and criticised it for what he called a double standard at the UN Summit of the Future. His comments come one day after the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed his alarm at the full-scale assault on the Sudanese city of Al-Fashir by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Earlier this week, Sudan's army and the RSF said they are open to peaceful solutions to a war that has been ongoing for more than 17 months. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves has been interrupted by a pro-Palestinian protester as she gave a speech at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. TV footage showed the protester being removed from the conference hall by security after shouting, "We are still selling arms to Israel." Ms. Reeves resumed her speech after a short pause and received a standing ovation from delegates. Britain suspended 30 of its 350 arms export licenses with Israel earlier this month because there was a risk such equipment might be used to commit serious violations of international human. And after thrashing Werder Bremen 5-0 in a Bundesliga clash to continue their perfect season, Bayern Munich celebrated with a trip to Oktoberfest. Bayern ran out comfortable winners to move up to 12 points from 4 matches, and with a week to go before their next match against champions Bayer Leverkusen, the league leaders have some time to unwind. The world's largest beer festival, the Oktoberfest, opened its tents on Saturday for the 189th time, with millions of visitors from around the world expected to attend the 2-week party. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.